Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to our series on the Havamal. Today we are looking at verse 134. So the first translation we'll look at for this is from Olive Bray. It reads, I counsel thee, stray singer, accept my counsels. They will be thy boon if thou obey'st them. They will work thy weal if thou winst them. Growl not at guests, nor drive them from the gate, but show thyself gentle to the poor. And then the second translation from Vikinger.org. Rail not at a guest, nor from thy gate thrust him. Treat well the indigent, they will speak well of thee. And then finally from Bellows, scoff not at guests, nor to the gates chase them, but relieve the lonely and the wretched. So we're talking about hospitality here. And we're going to begin by comparing the realities of a high trust society and a low trust society. And whether a society is high trust or low trust, it's usually a reflection of how people are actually conducting themselves. So first, a high trust society. In a secure society where there's general commonly held views of how people ought to behave and accepted boundaries and expectations, it's much easier to lend a helping hand because people understand the rules. So it's necessary for there to be a genuine sense of mutual goodwill in order for this to occur readily and willingly. And it indicates that people are able to keep their guard down at a reasonable level. And the reason they're able to do that is because people are conducting themselves in at least a broadly trustworthy manner. Now contrast this with a low trust society. In an insecure society, people are divided. They lack shared values. There's no real and consistent standard for people to hold themselves to or to be held accountable to, and this prevents people from being kind. You simply cannot be charitable and hospitable when you are feeling or actually being under siege. And a society of that kind requires that people are ultimately very suspicious and far less willing to be hospitable or charitable in any sense of the term. So based on these descriptions, what society do you think we currently have? We're not going to be able to fix things unless we acknowledge, what our starting point is. So let's talk a little bit about charity. Charitable giving should be entirely voluntary, sincere, and done in the spirit of gifting a gift because you want to do this. The moment it becomes involuntary or it is done through government agencies, essentially they extract money from you by taxes and they say, totally trust us, we'll give this to someone who really needs it. Or if the moment it's done for show or out of guilt, at that point it becomes tainted. It creates an atmosphere of ill will and resentment because that's the only thing that it can create. And naturally, when one is the recipient of charity, it should not be viewed as an entitlement. That also creates resentment and ill will. And then for hospitality, genuine hospitality, it forges bonds between people, and that at the very least establishes goodwill. And hospitality isn't a demand, nor is it to be condescending. It should be the meeting of other beings as equals because you enjoy their company. And hospitality really is a prerequisite for friendship. And honestly, for starting to redress a lot of the wrongs that we see in our society, we have to have be amongst people that are going to take advantage of us, who are seeking to victimize us, people who are not trying to take their way of doing things and replacing it with our way of doing things. People need to be good guests as much as we need to be good hosts. And without that initial baseline, it's not really going to be possible to address the problem. So there's a lot to really contemplate with today's verses. And of course, it's this is oh drat. I don't know when it started doing the loopy thing where it cuts out sound and video. So I'll just briefly kind of restate what I was saying. It is too big of an issue for us to solve all by ourselves as individuals. But what we can do amongst our own pagan communities is have kind of general broad agreements about how we're going to conduct ourselves, how we're going to treat one another, and hold each other accountable to that. And through that, we can set an example to the broader world, because when people see that something works and something is functioning, they're much more open-minded to that idea that is underneath that particular standard. So tossing this out into the universe, I'm really looking forward to people's reactions and responses and talking about how we can start establishing a better atmosphere amongst ourselves, because ultimately that will be the first step towards creating a better society. But that is what I have for you from this verse. I would like to hear what you got out of the verse yourself. Did your mind go in a different direction? And if so, what was that direction? Tell me all about it in the comments. And of course, come back next week for the next verse. But that'll do it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.